going to go ahead and make the connections between some of the major teachings of the Bhagavad Gita and some of the lessons that we learned from the clips that we watched. The very first thing, we want to analyze the connection between Neo and Arjuna. Right? If we look at Neo and Arjuna, Neo is going through a very difficult time in his life. He's quite confused. He's looking for something. He's searching for something. Right? And he's not happy in general. And he's willing to take some risks to find the answers. Arjuna is also very, very confused. He's on a battlefield. He's a soldier. He's extremely confident. He's never lost a battle in his life. That's how confident this person is. Extremely successful. Yet now he's sitting on that chariot, seeing his family members on the other side, and he's not sure if he should go into this battle. And some of the symptoms that are described in the Bhagavad Gita are what Arjuna is going through. Now try to imagine yourself going through these symptoms. He's so confused and so bewildered at seeing his family members ready to fight him. He says, "My mouth is drying up, Krishna. My hair is standing on end. My mind is reeling. My bow is slipping from my hand. And I'm losing all composure. And I can't even stand on my feet right now." I'm sure things have gotten bad for us at one point or other in our lives. Maybe they've gotten this bad where you couldn't even stand on your own 2 feet. And the reason I was able to relate to Arjuna and also Neo is because it was about 20 years ago, about 21 years ago, while I was growing up in LA to parents who had a very, very successful multi-million-dollar business, we lost all our fortunes, everything. And we went from having a $1 million house and properties and cars to an incredibly successful business to literally nothing. And making a very long and crazy story very short, we ended up moving to East Europe, Bulgaria for a couple of years, from 93 to 95, right out of communism. A very unstable time for that country, kind of a scary time for us also. And it was at that time that I took a copy of the Gita with me, having lost everything else. We went from a 6-bedroom house to a 1-bedroom apartment in Bulgaria, not knowing what my future had in store for me. I decided to explore the Bhagavad Gita. And I tried to read it earlier, but I was too busy lying at the beach or playing basketball or beach volleyball. That was my scripture. But now, before it never made sense, but now I started reading it. And I could relate to how Arjuna had lost his kingdom and had been uprooted and was forced to live in the jungle. And I'm like, well, coming from LA, Bulgaria is kind of like a jungle for me. Nobody spoke English in the country. So what happens is, usually, when spiritual knowledge comes to us, and if we're going through some difficulty or challenge, that's actually a blessing in disguise. Because that's when we become humble enough to receive the knowledge of the teachings of books like the Bhagavad Gita. When things are great and everything is stable and going the way you want it to, that stuff doesn't make so much sense because you feel like you're in control. It's when we feel like we're losing control, that's when we go into a space in our heart and mind when we actually call out in a helpless state and ask for the answers to come. So that humility that comes during a difficult time is a blessing. And of course, when something difficult happens, we want to get out of it as soon as possible. But usually that's a time we can grow the most. So this is a very important connection between Neo and Arjuna, and also for me, why both of these things were very, very powerful for me, and why I'm deciding to connect them. And a question that was asked a couple times that people asked was, who am I? And what's my purpose? And I think too often we get stuck on the question, what is my purpose? And Arjuna also asked this. He said, what is my purpose, Krishna? Should I fight or should I not fight? I really don't want to do this. But Krishna doesn't answer the question of what his purpose should be. He skips that and he decides to go into answering, who am I? He decides to tell Arjuna who he is. Because if you don't know what something is, how will you know its purpose? Like, see this projector and I don't know what it is, I have no clue what to do with it. So if we don't know who we are, how are we supposed to know what we're supposed to do with ourselves? So Krishna decides to answer that question first. And he says, right in the second chapter, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor will we ever cease to be. So immediately he's describing the characteristics of who Arjuna is, and that is that Arjuna, you are eternal, I am eternal, everyone is eternal. And then he says, just as the embodied living being goes from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul passes into another body at death. Very powerful. What Krishna's telling Arjuna is that you're not even what you think you are. We are not even these physical, material bodies. That's not even who we are. And this is something I encourage you to meditate on for the rest of the week and for the rest of your lives, actually. Basically, what's being said is that we're not who we think we are when we look in the mirror. When was the last time we looked in the mirror and told ourselves, that's not even me, actually. That's just my clothing for this lifetime. Krishna continues to say that just as an individual gives up old clothes and takes on new ones, the soul gives up the old body and accepts a new one. So we are very much described as the driver in the car. We are the driver. We are not the car. And this is the first and foundational teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. Every other teaching is based on this teaching. So if we don't get this one, we can take other things that might be helpful, but we won't get the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. So to understand we're not matter, we're actually spirit, and that we're eternally spirit, living inside matter right now. Next life, we may have a vehicle that looks different. This year, my vehicle is Indian-made. Next life, I may have a German vehicle. Then after that, I may have a Chinese vehicle. Who knows? We're going through different vehicles. And once we understand that, we can understand what really is my purpose in life. Where do we go from here? Then Krishna talks about the second point in terms of how did we get here? See, again, you have to know who you are, how we got here, and now really what to do. We have to have, before we know what to do, we have to have complete knowledge of who we are. So Krishna explains in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He says that in this world, in this universe, from the highest planet in the universe down to the lowest planet, he says there's 4 things that take place. He said birth, old age, disease, and death. You might think this Krishna guy is kind of pessimistic. He says these 4 things are taking place: birth, old age, disease, and death. He says, and these things are keeping society in anxiety. He says birth isn't the most pleasant thing for a child. And then old age, disease, and death aren't pleasant. He said, but every living being in this universe is going through this. He says, however, there is another realm that doesn't go through this, that doesn't experience birth, old age, disease, and death. He says, and that is my realm. He says, and those who achieve that realm will never have to come back down to the world of matter. Because matter, time, decays matter, and it deteriorates matter. Ultimately, time destroys matter. And in the spiritual realm, time allows sequence of events to take place, but time does not have the power to decay and destroy things because it cannot influence spirit. And in the spiritual realm, we're residing in our spiritual form, not in a form of matter. And in order to understand these things in a deep and profound way, that we're not the body and that we're actually spiritual beings living in the world of matter, we're kind of described as a fish out of water right now. You know, if you have a fish out of water, it's suffering. You can give it like really good fish food, give it like the best tasting worms, but it just wants to go back in the water. And that's kind of our situation. You know, we surround ourselves by things and gadgets and things that we're trying to make ourselves happy, but we're kind of like flip-flopping, you know? We're kind of flip-flopping like this. We're trying to be happy. Yeah, I'm happy now. Now I'm really happy. You know, now I'm definitely happy. Once I get that, I'll definitely be happy. And there's definitely some level of happiness, but we're described like a fish out of water. So the concept that's very, very important here was when Neo connects with Morpheus. And when Arjuna connects with Krishna, in the beginning of the second chapter, he tells Krishna, now I'm completely confused and really confused about my duty. I'm a soul surrendered unto you. I'm your disciple. Please tell me what I should do. And so the idea of a spiritual teacher or guru is a very essential and important one within the teachings of the Gita and Hinduism in general. Because Morpheus also says that I can show you the door, but you have to walk through it. He gives him that choice. So in the 4th chapter of the Gita, Krishna says that one has to approach a spiritual teacher, inquire from them, and render some service to them. And this is such a key concept that Hinduism says that without a spiritual guide or guru, one actually cannot achieve full enlightenment. You can only go so far. It's just not possible. And that may be a concept that's difficult for us to understand or maybe swallow, like, why do I need somebody to make it all the way? And the books are there, I can figure it out. We can say that for anything. Why do you need a yoga instructor? The book is there. Why do you need a calculus instructor? The book is there too. You know, why do you need a coach to play basketball? You can watch NBA and just try to do the same thing, but it doesn't work. Every subject in life, we've had a teacher for every single subject in life. And without a teacher, we'll probably make mistakes, we'll probably develop bad habits, right? Do something wrong, maybe hurt ourselves physically. Or the danger is that the mind might convince us that you're doing it the right way, just keep going. You know? And the Bhagavad Gita says our mind is right now our worst enemy. And we want to make it our best friend. So we don't want to be going to our worst enemy for advice, for spiritual advice. Because we know our mind has too often made us say things and do things that we've later regretted. Maybe none of you here have done that, but I have at least, you know. But that's the nature of our mind. And the 6th chapter also says that if you want to achieve transcendence, you have to have the help of your mind. You've got to be on the same page with the mind. Yesterday we did our mantra meditation session. We saw that during a 5-minute session, you can't remember the thoughts that we had in our mind during a 5-minute session. Or the mind was always going back and forth to this plan or to the past and then planning the next meal and, you know, whatever, going through so many different thoughts. So to keep the mind focused and to make sure that we understand the teachings properly, it is extremely important that we have a spiritual teacher. And, you know, this is a tricky topic because we may question that, how do you know who's a genuine teacher and who's not? Because there's so many people out there that could take advantage of us. And that's why it's so important to understand what a genuine teacher is from the Bhagavad Gita. Because the Gita tells us the qualities of a teacher. That one of the most important qualities of a teacher and even a practitioner is humility. Being able to acknowledge, I don't have all the answers. Being open to learning new things. So without that guru figure, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to achieve complete enlightenment. And again, like Trinity says, the answers are out there, and so is the Guru, and they will find you if you want them to. So these are some very, very key components, because ultimately, as the Bhagavad Gita is describing, we're trying to achieve, and as what the Matrix is describing, we're trying to achieve this higher reality. That's what our purpose in life is. Our purpose in life is to understand we're not the body. Our purpose in life, the second purpose, is to develop a loving relationship with the divine. And finally, to transcend the cycle of birth and death. These are the three goals of human life according to the Bhagavad Gita. And everything that we do in life should be helping us achieve these things, helping us understand we're not the body, that we want to go back to the spiritual realm, and that we want to have a loving relationship with the divine. Because ultimately, isn't it that we're all looking for love? I mean, isn't that the ultimate thing we're looking for? We're not looking for money. We're not looking for success. When we can't have love, then we try to replace love with those things because that gives us attention. But if we get the love, then all the other things aren't really that important because the soul is made up of love, actually. And it hankers to love someone eternally. But in a world of matter, what happens? You love someone for a little while, and either that love dissipates or death tears us apart from that love. And so the soul remains a little frustrated, keeps looking. And that's why Krishna encourages for everybody, especially Arjuna, to explore the possibility of going back to the spiritual realm. And at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says something really beautiful. He tells Arjuna, I've told you everything I want to tell you. Deliberate on it, and then do as you wish to do. Just like Morpheus says, you can take the red pill or the blue pill. You take the red one, I'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. You take the blue pill, you wake up and do whatever you want to do. So Krishna is giving Arjuna free will. And so in one sense, we all have that free will. How much we want to pursue our spiritual life, how deeply we want to find the answers to the questions, how much time we want to invest looking for the answers, trying to understand who we are. Because if we don't invest time into this, it's not just going to happen automatically. Nothing in this world really happens automatically. You don't get your college degree automatically. You don't get promoted at work automatically, unless maybe your relative runs the company or something, right? Everything takes endeavor, and so does spiritual life. And for us to remove the splinter from the mind, and the splinter in the mind is these questions. Who am I? Why am I here? These are splinters. And these splinters stay in the mind life after life after life. Because when we take a new birth, our same mind goes with us. And our mind is very much like a hard drive. Like, a hard drive, it's got all your files on it. If you put your hard drive into a new computer, it's the same computer. It's got all the same junk on there. Right? So when we are reborn, the same mind with all the conditioning, habits, hobbies, likes, dislikes, everything that you put in there, transferred over. And you're born with that same mind. Now you're just in the body of a child. But you'll have the same kind of habits and tendencies and things. So those splinters, if you don't take them out, they stay with you. And when those splinters are finally gone, through a dedicated and committed spiritual practice, then, at the time we breathe our last breath, we no longer enter another womb. Then we enter the spiritual realm. So this is the essence of the message of the Bhagavad Gita, that we have this very precious human form of life. And let's use it to answer the question, who am I? Why am I here? And what's my ultimate purpose? And how do I finally achieve that purpose? So this is the essential message that I wanted to share with all of you, connecting the Matrix, a modern sci-fi, and ancient wisdom from the Bhagavad Gita. And really my hope by using this movie to do this is that we can have a serious, thought-provoking conversation about these very important topics. At the same time, be entertained and have fun while doing it, As a monk, I still like to have fun, Planning on going on those gondolas afterwards at some point. So I'm hoping that, we were able to accomplish this where we could have a little fun, have a deep discussion, be a little entertained. So I want to thank you all very much for your time and for your participation and for your attention. And I hope that you were able to take some things with you today that you'll be meditating on for the rest of the week. And really, I hope for the rest of this life and for however many lives we are here, that we'll keep meditating on these topics. So thank you.